Welcome to the Light Reading Podcast. I'm Kelsey Zeiser. I'm a senior editor at Light Reading, and we're here at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, and I'm joined by
Stephan Litjens, and welcome Kelsey to our booth. So I'm heading a unit called Enterprise Campus Edge Solutions, which is all about private networks combined with edge compute. And again, welcome, and let's have a good discussion.
Yeah, good to see you, Stephan. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate it. So wanted to talk to you a little bit about Nokia's focus on private networks. Where do you see the most potential for growth in the private network space?
Well, I think over the last couple of years, we have seen, of course, the early segments emerge, like mining, ports. Those were the first ones. Next, we saw good traction in petrochemical, where you have these huge plants outside, a lot of people going around, big surfaces where you want to connect things and people. I think we have seen a very clear trend in the manufacturing side, where manufacturing, specifically discrete manufacturing, is starting to adopt the technology. And I would say that is also the area where most of the heavy lifting has been done, because there you really have complex machinery, which you then integrate with the wireless. And if you have that done, then of course you also need to do something with that data that you bring to the edge and develop the applications and so on. And there we have seen quite a big upswing. And if you then talk where's the biggest potential, well, of course, the manufacturing and discrete manufacturing is enormously large. So I would say this year we see a lot of new opportunities coming in that area.
Mm-hmm. And when you're working with some of these manufacturing companies, what are some of their common pain points that they want to address with private networks? Is it, network performance, reliability, moving away from Wi-Fi? What are your thoughts there?
Well, in general, and this is also a little bit the way how we position ourselves to clients, is that they first of all they look at this as a long-term event. So they say, I'm already on a digitization journey, and how can 5G help me accelerate that? And then, of course, there are the other technology developments. Gen AI is a good example, which you combine with all of that, and then you start to tackle use cases. And that starts with evergreen topics like worker safety. It starts with other people topics like assisting them with knowledge, because getting the right skills on the workflow is a challenge. So anything you can do with them to provide them more information to do their job better. One of the topics was the devices. So obviously, the more useful information you can bring to the workflow based on what is happening in the plant, helps their productivity. And then obviously it's the connecting the machines, reading out the data. Improving throughput of machines. AGVs is a good example. If an AGV drives through a plant, I know it's a podcast so you don't see this, but drives through a plant and you have more awareness around this AGV, you can actually go at a much higher speed. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know the environment, of course, it has to stick to the slower speed. So there are many of these use cases that have started to emerge, which have become reality in solving them. So, and I think that's a big difference to a few years ago when people talk about 5G as a miracle silver bullet. But now the 5G, has found its place. But more importantly, the surrounding systems have also started to emerge.
On how to differentiate the private wireless network use cases for service providers versus enterprises, what are the different monetization opportunities there?
Well, service providers for us are of course partners, but in the end, the actual users of these networks are car manufacturers, ports, people that produce household goods. So the CSPs for us are partners that we work with to fulfill the needs of these enterprises. Mm-hmm. So they don't consume the private networks by themselves. So it's a partnership.
Okay, makes sense. And I was also reading about Nokia's partnership with the ocean cleanup. I thought that was really interesting use case there. Tell us a little bit about what that program is.
Well, of course, we also feel we have a lot of sense of corporate responsibility, and we were looking at how can we help them? And the ocean cleanup folks reached out. They say, look, we have this enormous U-shape, call it a sort of net that we drag through the ocean. Mm-hmm. But in order to do that properly and protect the marine life, you want to look what's happening in real time. Right? And of course, one way to do that is just to set up a private network that connects all of these sensors and cameras and so on. And that improves the efficiency of that dragnet. And it gives them also the ability to react if the dragnet impacts the marine life, and they can stop or go in another direction. No, these are the projects that are useful, but also I think it cheers up everybody that private networks can actually have an impact on things like the environment. So that's one way we are proud of, and I'm happy to hear that you also like that one.
Yeah, so. and their dragnets are collecting garbage in the ocean. Is that right?
Garbage. Yeah. Well, tons of plastic in there.
Right.
I don't have the exact number in my mind, but it was literally tens of millions of kilos of garbage and plastic that floats around.
Does that create some unique connectivity challenges just because it's out in the ocean?
Oh, absolutely. It's portable, you have rough circumstances, you have the water floating around, and obviously it's harder to build reliable connectivity, and that's why private networks was a logical choice. So it's a difficult to control environment, but everything moves a little and so on. But that's where cellular is built for. It's for moving people. It should work in all sorts of conditions, and it was like a perfect match. And then the other thing is, of course, they like to use cameras, and cameras a lot of uplink data streaming. And again, cellular is a very good, or private wireless, very good technology for uplink data. Because it's always easier to send downlink, but uplink, that's usually the challenge.
Yeah, very important for monitoring how their progress is.
Because this is the thing, all the machines, and actually it's the same in factories. I always say as a joke, machines don't watch YouTube. So they only send stuff, they want to tell you stuff. But that's actually a big difference between of course, the public networks, which initially serve consumers, and there's a lot of data that goes towards the consumer. The machines talk to us.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Anything else that you're looking forward to just at the show, specifically at Mobile World Congress?
Well, here we launched a solution called MX Context, and if you really think of it, if you want to take more steps or have more creativity to help a company in its digitization journey, the more information you give them in real time, the more they can do. And we have long looked at providing them contextual awareness, and contextual awareness is different type of tracking technologies. If you walk through a plant, you could say you can track me through my phone. That's an option. If you have a different type of package, maybe if it's a letter, stick a phone on the letter, so you have a different type of tag. So we combine all of that real-time data on the location side, but then also there are other sensors like in the devices you have motion sensors, gyroscopes, there are sensors for humidity and so on. And you bring all of that data together in a data lake, and then especially with the availability of Gen AI, you can actually enormously help the work on the shop floor. You could imagine that if you have a very complex machine, there's a ton of manuals and descriptions of very specific data and sensors. So you can train a Gen AI with that. And then if you can provide the real-time data to that Gen AI, which we do through MX Context and some other stuff, then that Gen AI will actually call to the worker and say, hey, you need to go and have a look at this machine because sensor A, B, and C is doing this. And according to the manual, you should change the oil or put in a new sensor and so on. So that combination of things is actually really interesting. And then stitching that together, that's basically what we are demonstrating at the show here. And I think that's actually the area where I personally see a lot of possibilities for companies like us.
So how would you, if you were giving someone an elevator pitch with MX Context, is it a way to provide data analytics for sensors in a manufacturing environment?
It brings you the real-time awareness. So it tracks people, machines, sensors, environmental data. So you basically have a sort of real-time view on what is going on in the plant. So we bring that together, and then there's a fusion engine that glues together the different type of positioning data in one screen, and that you feed into different type of AIs. And then can say, okay, now I can do this. Or if we go back to the AGV, if the contextual awareness application has track of everything that happens in the plant, and it can say to this HVAC, all right, for the next 30 seconds, you can go at double speed. So these are the things that you can do if you make that data in real time available in the data lake for developers to work with. And then the sort of applications, anything, worker safety. Right, so you're standing too close to the machine, you can proactively reach out or push the talk. You can also track people from having real injuries. And then on the other side, as I said, you can ensure that the machines are monitored in real time, even if you don't have all the skilled worker sets. And then what the creativity of the plant manager comes up with. So, and I think this is a part of the the journey of AI and edge compute and also 5G is making people aware of what you can do with it. So we have a bunch of lead use cases which have real commercial meaning for us, but usually this sparks the thinking, right? So if you're in a mine, so we bring a base starting point, but the people that do the mining, they look at that and they're like, okay, if I can do this, wait a minute, why can't you help me solve this use case and this use case? And the more tools we give them, the better that journey goes. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, certainly worker safety is
worker
a big one, very
never
important.
stops. So
Right.
Never stops.
Well, Stephan, thanks so much for
All right.
speaking with me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
I hope for you the same, and hopefully talk again in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.